Hello. Once again, it's Write Once, Read Many. This time we're covering 16.3 and 16.4. Getting the link ready. Hey, Bill. So, hey, Greg. I didn't get as much writing done as I wanted because I kept rewriting sections in 16.3. So there's gonna be some wing in it in 16.4, some would say. But that's just the nature of things. So, how's this? I'm very likely to be super spotty off and on Thanksgiving stuff. Greg says just blame Thanksgiving, even if it had nothing to do with it. Exactly, it was Thanksgiving. That's what happened. Let's see here. As a, I guess. Let's see here. I should do the audience participation reminder. It's come up with your own method of parahumans conveyance for 16.4. Let's see here. For the themes, well, I don't know for the themes. There's, I didn't really write any down. Being bad at talking to people. Not winning an argument. These seem like themes. But, let's see, Vale says... Is a hearse a good method of parahuman conveyance, assuming it's after an Endbringer battle or something? Or is that too dark? That's not... I mean, if the hearse, it's got to be made from powers. Vale, this is a question of how do you get yourself around with powers, not body bag as means of conveyance because all the capes are dead. Let's see here. Oh no. Boop. Well, for a moment, the stream will get to have seen the art for the next chapter, but now it is the art for this chapter. Vale says, not just witty, dark uber. Dark uber. Okay, I'll take that. That's the main method of conveyance now that we all have smartphones and parahumans. Is evil Uber's evil Uber service. But anyway, real answers for the parahumans conveyance thing can can be at the end of the episode. But yes, Uber Hearst. What a great business idea, but only in parahumans. Okay. So, I think I'm just gonna get into my 16.3 Dealy Bop. Skitter starts by thinking about how she's better at beating people up and kidnapping them than she is at interrogating them. Trickster wants to steal Pigo's phone, but Imp has already stolen it. Wow. Beaten to the punch. They all start talking, and Gru uses some darkness on Pigot's head so she can't hear them scheming. You obviously can't let them hear you scheme. Gru's worried that there's a bunch of problems that come with using a PRT cell phone to call Tattletale. Trickster's like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway. So Gru gets really mad, but decides that he should make the call because of the Undersider's password system. And Trickster walks off with Sundancer to have a private conversation while they have downtime. So Pigot can't maintain her standing position where the darkness was covering her head. Standing in place for an extended period of time is painful on her legs, since they got gnawed on by some Nilbog creatures. Regent's fine with her being in pain, but Skitter says that she can't, or that she can just sit down and they'll re-darkness her if they need to later. They can't get the suits on their side with Pigot's help because even if she orders them into an area, they would fight with their own programming, so they would still try to arrest the villains and help the heroes. So they can't just have them fight the Protectorate or something. Pigot more or less tells them that she doesn't think that they'll be able to trick the AIs of the suits. I mean, Dragon made them after all. So she goes on to tell them that there will be more mounting forces against them. Even if they win, more capes are going to show up and more dragon suits until they're defeated. Pushed out of the city or arrested, really. Imp wants to gag Pigot. Regent wants to use his gross sock. And Skitter refuses to do this because it's beneath them. Then Pigot starts up some verbal sparring. She just starts with scoffing at Skitter, and then Skitter's like, "What?" And then she's like, "Oh, you don't seem ready for my arguments." And she's only focusing on Skitter because she's the only one susceptible to this line of mental attack. Vale says, just in case I have to leave, I want to say I feel like I nailed the spirit of the audience participation question without saying a single thing about the power. I'm proud of myself. All right, Vale. I will trust that it is a good response. I'm trusting you for now, but your proud of yourself powers might be taken away. No, I'm just being a shit. What was I saying? Vale says, did I say good? Maybe not good. I trust that your answer will nail the spirit of the audience participation question. I believe in you, Vale. Where am I at? Oh yeah. Pigot's messing with her, and Skitter is making some arguments that are shaky at best, is what I wrote here. And then I also wrote, why bring up the fundraiser? Vale says, I'm in a mood. It must be because of Thanksgiving. Exactly. Everything's because of Thanksgiving. Just like Greg said. A good mood, by the way. Oh, Vale, I just assumed that in a mood meant a bad mood. It does mean bad time. It's like saying, I was feeling some type of way. That usually doesn't mean I felt great. Oh boy. Yeah, anyway, so Skitter's offer game from the start of the conversation, just like me every time we bring up Thanksgiving. And Pigot's Pigot's the one who was pepper sprayed and stung by bees and stuff, and she's still just, easily defeating Skitter in the verbal arena. Higo says, you can't weigh good versus bad in a direct way because harm you cause doesn't get undone by doing good things. And as an added burn, her argument more or less includes, but even if it did balance out like that, you still haven't climbed out of the hole you dug, idiot. And then Regent says, I'm bad at math anyway, at some point. And then, let's see here. So, Pigot starts going after one of the sources of the most good Skitter's done, all of this reconstruction in her area of town. And she attacks the money, and the morality behind having the money in the first place. And I wrote and deleted like a summary for this section, and I went back and forth on reading a big long section, but I decided that it's Pigot theater time. How much damage was done in the course of earning that money? I see the repercussions you don't. Things pass my desk. Hospital bills, property damage, psychiatrist notes. People lose their jobs, lose precious belongings. Parents are woken in the middle of the night because their children are seriously injured. I see the details from detectives and narcotics who track the drug trade. I know you don't sell drugs, Skitter, but you're interacting with people who do. If you buy a favor from someone who does, the merchants, Coil, the Chosen, then you're indirectly supporting that trade. Just like you're supporting any number of evils every time you help a fellow villain. I've talked to homicide detectives who have dealt with the bodies in the wake of your shenanigans. We don't kill. People die when you start feuds. Bakudo was injured by you in one altercation, and she attacked the city over the course of several days. Do you know how many people were harmed then? Because you set her off? I could show you photos. People with flesh melted off, frozen, burned, turned to glass. When I don't see these things in person, I see them on my desk in high-definition, glossy photos. I could arrange for you to see the photos if you don't believe me, or if you want to see the damage you've done for yourself. No, I don't need to see them. Why is that, Skitter? Are you afraid facing the reality would shatter this nice little delusion you're living under? I'm not to blame for whatever crimes Bakuda committed. You played a role. Anything she did is on her head, just like anything the Nine did is on them. Where do you draw the line? When do you start taking responsibility? Or will you explain away every evil you've done and count only the actions you want? Yeah, there you go. Pigot Theater. Vale says, I'm trying to visualize the double T that is canon part of Tattletale's costume. I think it's there in the back, but curious if it's on purpose. Super easy detail to miss. I think the thing on the back is where the two T's cross, kind of. But also the main emblem is on her chest, so we can't, see it now, regardless. I don't think Vic is here at the stream, so I don't know that we can get an answer until next week. But, let's see here. Vale says front and back or only front. I'm just curious. I don't know. We'd have to see. I kind of think it's only on the front, but I don't know. Regent says this is going nowhere. Skitter realizes she's getting shaken by this conversation. The conversation ends and the others return. Skitter helps Pigot stand and they don't get any resistance from her. Skitter's not sure what this means, and she can tell that Pigot is just letting them take her to Tattletale. A bit ominous for her taste. And this is where there's a page break, time skip to when they've met up with Tattletale. She was with Miner and Brooks, and each one of them is going to take one of the two vehicles that the two groups use to get here and just drive them off in a direction so they can't be tracked using those. And then the group of the Undersiders walk off with Pigou at this point. Greg says, law enforcement officer blames criminal, individual criminal for all crimes. News at 9. Yeah, it's pretty much the what's happening here. You know, I really think that the eyes on Pigou in this image make her look like a Ghibli character, like one of the really angry Ghibli characters, maybe from like Howls or something. Like there's something about the thick eyebrows, the like width of the nose, the amount of pupil to sclera or whatever, or not pupil, because these are just black dots, but yeah, either way, looks great. My eyes were just drawn to it from across the screen. What are we looking at? So, yes, they go on the walk. Skitter thinks some mean thoughts about Pigou, and she thinks how Pigou's a bully enabler. And she mentally compares Pigou to Emma. The worst person you could be. And I would say that a lot of arguments that Taylor has, or Skitter has against Pigou end up coming out to the same things Pigou is saying about Skitter, about how it's like, the people you associate with are the worst. Vale says she has what is known as stinky socks. Oh my god, eyes. I suppose. I think that's just the, like, hatred eyes. I hate capes, and you're a cape, and you're a specific cape I hate on top. Let's see here. Tattletale's asking questions and getting the answers with her power. Pigou's staying silent and stuff, you know, as you do. The PRT hasn't arrested any of the 3 missing travel siders. They're all, like, unknown position to the PRT. Dragon is gone, probably fighting the 9. I mean, Pigou says she was in the city last time she saw her, but Tattletale sees through this instantly. When Pigou keeps playing hard to get, then Tattletale says that they could use Regent. But this is an empty threat, and Pigou's like, I know that you know that this is an empty threat. And then, so she 1 level deeps this Yomi game. And it wouldn't work because they don't have time to do it. Pigou is like, I know that Regent is Heartbreaker's son Hijack, so I know how his powers work, you idiots. She knows enough details to know that he can't loosen his grip on someone as immediately dangerous as Shatterbird. She's brought up torture a couple times in the conversations they've had, and Tattletale says it's so that she can gauge them as a group. And Pigou says she's pretty sure they wouldn't torture her. Excuse me. Trickster says that she's being too optimistic, but Pigou shows that she knows not only them individually, but the group dynamics. She'd be in trouble if they left her with just Trickster or Regent. But with the others, to keep them in check, she's fine. Pigou brings up Shadow Stalker and alludes to something Skitter doesn't know about, which is concerning and suspicious. But despite not being out of the loop on this one, she decides to let it pass for now, as Tattletale suggests. And Tattletale promises to explain it later so they don't derail things right now. Pigou says knowing is half the battle, and this line serves triple duty. First, needling Skitter about not knowing the Shadow Stalker thing. Second, she's segueing into the next half of that paragraph where she's saying it doesn't matter that they know what she's doing because it'll work anyway. And third, Pigou's proving that she's either a G.I. Joe fan or a fan of dumbass memes. And, like, that's a pretty good third use of a sentence. Next, we know that Pigot's dropping. Next thing we know, Pigot's dropping bombs on us. Lisa's real name is Sarah. Bet you didn't know that one before you read this chapter, because this is the chapter where we learn that. And she didn't just find out who Tattletale was in a normal manner. She, spent her own money to do research. And Tattletale's annoyed because she can tell that Pigot is, loving this conversation. It's like trying to send Beckett Mariner to the brig. It's just a big mistake. Pigot's yelling, "I love being interrogated!" She says that they've all got a time limit over them because she needs to have constant medical care because of the stuff we saw in 16.x. And so now they can either let her go or they can let her die. And Tattletale seems to decide that if she's got limited time, she's going to go back to actually getting information. And when she asks about which dragon suit was sent after Bitch, then Pigot instead mentions the time that she spent her own money to go meet Tattletale's parents in person. And once again, this successfully derails Tattletale. And even after this, Pigot stunts on Tattletale more by saying, "I'm just doing this to waste your time." She's she's not just conversationally running circles around them. She's riding a motorcycle doing a wheelie and yelling, "You're never going to catch me." And she's right. After a final rant about how her weakness is what's letting her pull off this victory, then Skitter decides to walk away and have a conversation with the rest of the Undersiders. Although she does make sure to have Sundancer and the medic watch Trickster to make sure he doesn't do any bad stuff to Pigot. It's the one thing Sundancer, the beta, is good for, is that she's gonna be horrified by your actions, and then Kraus will feel bad. So they talk through plans. They can't bring her to her house where they have the specialty medical equipment with her specific treatment information. Various reasons for that. Controlling her with Regent doesn't really get them much and basically spends all their remaining time. And Tattletale surprises the others by saying that Pigot is trained to resist mental and emotional attacks. If they knew anything about her background, she knows their background, then they'd be prepared for this kind of thing. But they're real amateurs compared to a researcher like Pigot. It's kind of funny how, Armsmaster kind of feels like the perfect Protectorate team lead for a PRT director like Pigot, because Pigot and Armsmaster are so similar, I guess. He's just also a tinker on top of things, and she's much better at, social dynamics. But they're both very, They plan everything ahead. They see all the details. They're good at finding weaknesses. They're great at setting up battlefields the way they want. I don't know. I just think they're really they're a good pair. I mean, a toxic pair to be sure, but this is parahumans. They're all toxic pairs. Let's see here. Regent says maybe they should just leave town and screw over Coil. Skitter says they can't because Dinah. Regent asks why they don't just torture Pigot. There's a back and forth between the characters about torture not working, and I think that it's less interesting to talk about whether torture works or not, because within the context of Regent saying it kind of does, though, I think the point of him saying it does is not to be let's contradict real science. It's just that the moral dilemma doesn't exist when you admit the truth that torture doesn't work. There's never a real reason to use torture, but to understand the characters, if there is a benefit to doing the bad thing, then we learn more about them when they decide not to do the bad thing. So there's a nod to the truth with like Gru and Tattletale, and there's like a story and character motivation coming from the Regent side of the conversation. I think it's kind of amazing how well like the needle is threaded with that section. And they decide not to do it because it wouldn't get them anything and would be bad. Imp says that they should just do the thing that she keeps saying. Use a dirty sock and put it in her mouth. Wouldn't that be funny if we use the dirty sock and we put it in her mouth? But then everyone keeps ignoring Imp's suggestion. As always. They're always ignoring Imp. But they decide to head out, and they're going to split into different groups to save different teammates. You know, Tattletale's going to go interrogate Piggo somewhere, and yeah, like, importantly, Skitter is going with Imp and Regent to save Bitch. And we get a line that's funny enough that I felt like I wanted to put in here. Trouble with this sort of gag is that if she pukes, she could choke on her own vomit. How do you know these things? Regent, he's always flabbergasted at Taylor and grossed out by her. But, like, I don't feel like this is too uncommon of a knowledge. It's, like, slightly more common than knowing that eating bugs is fine, actually. The group is worried that each subgroup that they send out has a 1/3 chance of fighting Dragon's newest suit, the Azazel, and that it's a problem. Yeah. Greg says, Taylor's a nerd. A crime nerd. Well, she's a nerd. She's a nerd criminal. A crime nerd. I mean, I could keep listing her crimes right now, but, Sky's not here to yell, fucking nerds! So, where are we? We are here where Piggo spills the tea that Defiant is working with Dragon now, her new partner. So, you know, you guys are screwed now that Defiant has showed up. He's not someone you would know. Wink. And also, Piggo, I don't remember exactly how she says it, but some point in this chapter, she's like basically saying, I will do anything underhanded to defeat you people. I don't care. It's when she's like listing her low spec capabilities compared to parahumans. And so she doesn't give a fuck about breaking the truths and working with Arms Master and stuff. And despite all this stuff Skitter was saying about the gag earlier, they still gag her with the sock. And then they talk one last time about which specific robots they've seen and fought, and then they leave. Final chapter thoughts? I just wanted to say on this one, I remember one time I was listening to this chapter of the audiobook. It was probably my like third or fourth time listening to the book, and I was just like amazed at how good it was. This is one of the arcs that's read by Rain, and it's right in the section where the Undersiders walk away from Piggo and they're sort of reasoning things out. But it's just like the voice acting that he did and the character writing and the complicated scenario that they couldn't fix by any obvious means. Like, it's all just really, really good. I don't know. So I thought I would highlight this, given that, a few years ago I was just, like, enamored by this chapter. And so my brain, like, leaps to this as, like, a casual high point in the... I mean, it's not, like, the greatest point in the book, but it's just, like, so... It's not an over-the-top action scene. It's not, like, a heart-to-heart between family members. It's like just a conversation between the teammates about like what they're going to do next, and it's so casually good. I just blown away. Anyway, moving on to 16.4. I have much less written about 16.4. Some would say that I just wrote the 2 words "wing it," and then I took out the quote, "Beggars can't be choosers. We're capes, not beggars." And that the rest of it will be me just talking about this. So they decide to head out. They're discussing how they're gonna get there. Indeed, as Greg says, we'll do it live. And this weirdly is another chapter that's just like stuck in my mind. Like it's very easy for me to pull together, like to hear the audiobook going and see myself in like several past locations listening to it. There's some stuff that I've listened to like too much, like Arc 22. I've listened to so many times that it kind of blurs together all the like places that I was when I listened to it, etc. Um, but this has it's just in that middle zone. Anyway, so yes, Bitch has not quite moved to her new territory. She's still at the train yards, and so they're like talking about how they're gonna get there. They can't really drive because the roads are so fucked up, especially in that area. No one's cleaned it up because not only like is Bitch not cleaning it up, but no one could go there to work because of the dogs. So, it's a whole disaster. Also, that argument that Skitter made last chapter about how they readjusted Bitch's territory is not that convincing when she hasn't left for the new territory yet or whatever. So, come on, Skitter, step it up. And so they're like trying to decide on like how can we use our powers, which theoretically have like these infinite power sources, to get us there. Imp says a funny joke about James and the Giant Peach. Then Skitter's like, no, a pile of bugs can't convey us there. I'm sorry. And then it smash cuts to after they bring up Shatterbird, then Regent's like, we can't carry you there. It could only carry one person, and that's me, Regent. And then she's like, what if? And then it smash cuts with a page break to one of her greatest ideas, despite it says maybe not my best idea in retrospect. It is clearly one of her best ideas. They jam a bunch of glass into a door, and then they're like surfboarding around with glass doorboard, and they're just like flinging themselves around. They've got spider cord to keep themselves vaguely attached to it, but it's just 3 people flying around on a door, and they're like taking turns way too wide and like hitting the sides of buildings and stuff. It's awesome. You put this in the show. You can't skip this scene. And she's freaking out. There's a little scene where there's a fence, and then they're like getting closer and closer to the fence, and Regent's like fucking with her, and he knocks down the fence at the last second. And they even like bump off the ramp that is the leftover fence. Vale says, this part I didn't care for when I read it. It's always felt misplaced to me. Might just be me. Like, misplaced, like it doesn't fit the tone, or I think it's kind of this first half of the arc of Arc 16 is very kind of light in tone almost, so that's why I did always feel like it kind of fits. Again, like this is their fighting dragon. She may be very powerful, but she's not going to torture you. She's not going to kill you. She's just gonna pile containment foam on you. Oh no, they got me. So an airy crazy taxi on a glass door felt more right. Vale says, it's silly in a way that doesn't fit the scenario, scene, and dynamic. Again, it might be me being cranky as a natural mental state. It may be. But it's okay. We don't have to like all the same stuff. So they get to the train yards, and they're crashing into shit, and they hear the fighting before they get to the fighting, and they stop a bit away so that they're not seen immediately, and then they see that there's like a whole bunch of dogs. It says 6 dogs in the area, and then like an untransformed dog, and then like Bitch and Barker and Biter, and the 2 civilian people are here taking care of the... I guess it just says the vet girl. I don't see it mentioning the civilian guy yet. Maybe he's in the scene later. I think he's here. Either way, there's a whole bunch of people, and there's a robot, and Taylor's like, I don't get it. This robot doesn't seem that big. It says 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide, with like a giant arm on each side that's about, it says a third of the mass, so I guess each arm is as big as the rest of the body. Very odd looking. I can't quite picture it very well. Barker's doing his power. It seems to be sort of pushing the suit around, but not really dealing very much damage. It's just buying them some time. There's a lot of dogs leaping in and out, but most of them are tired. And then Skitter's just like, what the fuck am I seeing here? Is this the end of the fight? And then she tries to size up the robot, and she's like, well, it seems to be repairing itself, but I don't know. And then the first thing that Bitch says before anyone even asks any questions is that they look at each other, and she goes, it won't fucking die! Sorry, I forgot to growl. I'm Rachel. It wouldn't have picked a brute, I wouldn't have picked a brute type machine to go up against Bitch, thinks Skitter, even though, like, I don't know, it kind of makes sense. Just, the idea is to just keep her occupied while the others are fighting, right? But then she thinks about Defiant and maybe how Arms Master was doing this, and how he actually did have a pretty good read about Bitch during the other fight. Oh, I think the art itself is from later in the chapter, but I'm going to do the speed draw now, because the fight has begun. So we can let that play out. And so, Skitter's like, we gotta stop it from repairing itself. And Bitch is like, yes. Then, she's trying to figure out which one they're fighting. And she's like, I don't think this would be the Azazel. And then, they start, launching in with some Shatterbird action. They're talking about how they have to retreat. Bitch doesn't like this idea, doesn't like the idea of retreating because it goes against her honor. They're sort of sizing up the remaining, forces they have, because everybody who's been in this fight up to now, who didn't just arrive, is basically tired and worn out, including all the dogs and the, non-powered henchmen and stuff. Oh, Vale says very cool art. Yeah. It's a exploded robot, or maybe it's a robot rebuilding itself. But it's certainly something, and I really like the colors on it in the end, which we'll see in a minute. But there's a lot of like greens and stuff. The suit's firing the grappling hook thing at them like it was, it's clearly the same grappling hook that arms man had from like Arc 6 and stuff. And they're leaping out of the way. Barker is, correct in his assessment that it's not even trying to hit them with the grappling hook, really. It's just trying to tire them out because they keep having to jump out of the way, and it has to do very little. And then, and his voice is all gravelly. Probably sounds just like Tom Waits at this point. And then, let's see here. They're trying to push it around with glass, but it's a bit difficult. They're still charging dogs in. They're doing stuff like bending up materials to use as, uses more mobile suit fuel, because, it just keeps piling metal in itself and forming new dragon. She's trying to put spider silk around the enemy like she's done many times, but it's not really working. As she says, like, it's as if something is as strong as steel, that doesn't exactly help when it can rend steel. But I think the silk would be better at maintaining cohesion than like an equal steel thing, because it's like it has tensile strength in a different way. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But the silk doesn't work in any case. So she's thinking through her options. She sees some more stuff, like Biter punches it, and he's got his bear trap jaw guard thing, and he's fighting, and Barker, every time he's using his power, it's like he's near the end of his rope. He's at the what Regent's equivalent would be is like a backfire, but Barker has, just his throat will get hurt or whatever. So, some of that's happening. Bentley jumps in and knocks it over for a second. We love Bentley. He's one of our faves. I think Bentley and Sirius are two of my favorites, really. Then we got boop boop boop. Even whenever it's knocked down, it still like just shoots grappling hooks from the ground, which I find hilarious. It's just like, what do I even care that I'm knocked over? Every like few paragraphs, Skitter thinks about like, oh no, the other mobile suits are coming to get us. And like, I hope they're still disabled, and just like whatever else. So the suit's still doing fine, It sort of reconfigures itself. And then she keeps seeing it reforging metal in the heart of the machine. She's trying to get stuff in there. Not really working. And then eventually the suit like totally reconfigures itself. And when it's recreated itself, it's the very first dragon suit that she ever saw, sans missile launchers. And she's like, oh, maybe the suit that fought Leviathan was supposed to revitalize itself, but it just like didn't have the chance to do that because of how fast it got destroyed. And let's see here. Boop boo doo doo doo. So she's sighs a sigh of relief, saying, "At least it's not the Azazel." And then she's like, "You could have explained to us what was happening, Rachel." And then she answers, "I did. I said it won't fucking go down." And then when saying you could have explained why, she says, "I don't understand why," which is kind of a good point, but some of this information would have been useful. Skitter thinks about buying black market EMP devices to take out Tinker gear. She thinks about how she hates Tinkers. She thinks about how she wants to, have her own Tinkers, to have clockwork layers. I mean, this is an example of something that she only sees the end investment of. But, she's salty. The salt is real. She comes up with her new plan that they're gonna hit it real hard, then they're gonna all run away. I guess this is the point at which bitch is like, oh, this is terrible. I don't want to leave. I'm not gonna cede territory to this thing. I keep almost killing it. And then this is when she realizes why this is the suit they sent against bitch. It's that it keeps feeling like she's got the victory, but it keeps getting snatched away at the last second. So it keeps her in the fight. And then Skitter tries to give a new way of looking at it, that they've won every time they've made it reconfigure itself, and even if they run away, that's not necessarily one loss. That could maybe be seen as a draw. She doesn't say it in those words, but she's like, I don't know, escaping, pretty good. And then, she says the dogs might get hurt, and Bentley is like, oh, right then. So it's a pretty good underscore to what she's saying. And then, they sort of talk through what they're gonna do. They're running around. They're using the best of their abilities to punch a hole in the robot, then fill the hole with glass, and then after that happens, the heart of the machine kind of overheats the glass and melts it, and then where's the line? I really like the line. Jumping ahead. Shatterbird pushed again. The suit barely moved. She wasn't so adept at moving molten silicon. And yes, I do find it funny that they are trying to push her around with the melted chip parts inside her. I'm saying her like the robot's a lady, but that's only because I think of the robot as an extension of Dragon. Let's see here. But that's actually kind of later. What was the part in the intermediary? Yes, they decide on their plan. Bitch at first is like, you're gonna leave me behind, and then it's like, no, we just gotta jump on it for a second with your big Doge, and then once Big Doge punches it over, and we've got an opening, then we can run. And they do. And Skitter wants to factor in all the things, the suit's not gonna kill them. So it's not going to turn molten hot like it does sometimes when it's got an actual person on it. But she's not actually sure how good at estimating things it is. So she's worried that if she does a risky plan that involves using its non-lethality restrictions, she'll just end up getting one of them killed. So she decides that's a bad choice. So yeah, they do the glass move that I explained earlier. Then they do a second set of jousting and lance it with another big post with a dog joust. And then they leave, and then Skitter herself after this is like, oh, I think we just beat it. And she's basically getting caught by the same psychology trap, but then she shakes it off, and she's basically like, okay, I can't even tell bitch that we almost beat it, because she might have the same instinct to go back and get the complete W. Then she thinks about how Dragon's awesome. She's like, what is her specialty? She's too cool for me. And then, they run away again. They make another door sled with a new door. And then they get the vet trainee and the henchman guy, who is here too. So I did remember right. They're up on the dogs with the crew, and they're all riding away. So they successfully saved Bitch and all of her 4 followers, because she still only has 4 followers right now. Pretty good. And then they make their way to Ballistic's lair because they need to help Ballistic or whatever, even though Skitter doesn't give a fuck about Ballistic. She says we had planned to arrive by dusk, but the sun wasn't even setting. They're nailing this plan. So the others weren't there yet. They fan out. They don't really find anything. They try to use relay bugs, and she feels bad. She's like, I couldn't get them digestive systems like Atlas, so when they run out of energy, they'll die. And she keeps them in a dormant state as often as she can, and uses dragonflies to do the actual flying so that they're not using their energy. And then she thinks about Panacea and how they only had time to save Atlas. But it's always fun when she sends her relay bugs out to extend her range. It feels like she's sort of, like if there was a constant low buzzing in the series, then this buzzing is when the hum would grow louder as the relay bugs went further out. Much in the same way that if, say, the Seamurg were screaming and we suddenly realized that the Seamurg scream had never really gone away. You know, it's like that. So, right at the end of the chapter, the very last thing that happens is Skitter's like, I found the next dragon suit before I found the others, and I immediately knew it for what it was. It had to be the Azazel. Sometimes, when she's being hardcore, Skitter becomes Solid Snake, but the David Hayter version. Yeah, so that's that chapter. Another good one. I think it's got a good fight, and I like the glass door thing. I personally think it's the exact right amount of being silly. Yeah. Cool. And how do these two fit into the arc? Well, given that Arc 16 is a mega arc and it's the biggest arc, they fit as very small pieces, as all the chapters do, but they are a great middle portion of what I would say is the first half of the arc, which really ends with next week's chapters 16.5 and 16.6. So, good planning, good talking, great chapters, really good bridge between the start of the arc, oh no, there's dragon, to the middle of the arc, oh no, we've beaten dragon. Spoilers. Anyway, as far as characters go, Gru, we get to see some great Gru moments. He does not get along with Trickster. Trickster kind of, he really pushes Gru's buttons, but also he's in a position where Gru can't fully push back on him. Like, he basically does Regent stuff without Gru being able to fully yell at him. But then he's still like a professional, so he ends up doing the call himself, even though he doesn't like the idea of the call. We all love Brian. Trickster. Trickster is, well, you know, he's very Trickster in these chapters. He wants to, like, torture people. He wants to murder people. He's very angry and impatient. Having side conversations. People don't trust him. Just Trickster stuff, you know. Pigot. Regardless of anything else that we can say that Pigot actually has a pretty good understanding of the a bunch of the underside or travel-siders, bunch of both groups, maybe even all of them. I don't think she really gets anything wrong about them in these chapters, and when she's trying to use information to cold read the group, she's pretty successful at that too. So impressive performance. Pigou goes feral in 16.3. Taylor is like disgusted by Pigou, but she should probably be like, oh, Pigou, she's awesome. She's like me if I didn't have powers. I would be that psych. I really do think that without powers, Taylor would be all like, I have to stop the people with powers. Yeah, we get so many good Pigou moments. This is one of Pigou's finest hours. In fact, I would say is these chapters. She gets a nice chance to shine. Regent, pretty classic Regent. He's like a much more relaxed version of the trickster violence standpoint, where he's just like, why don't we do the bad thing? It'd be great. But they tell him no, you can't do the bad thing. I also did think I like it when they're surprised about Pigou having mental and emotional powers resistance training. We got Imp. Imp is being Imp. She convinces them to put a sock in Pigou's mouth. Then we've got Tattletale. For Tattletale, I mean, we learn like a lot about her this chapter in a way. We learn that she like double fakes her name. Lisa's not her real name. We get an additional like callback to what we've learned previously. Imp took put a sock in it too literally. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, because we had already learned about how she grew up rich with her with the conversation they had with Cherish during the Slaughterhouse 9 stuff. I think that was in arc 14, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like the fact that Pigou has met these people and talked to them in person, it seems like important information. And Tattletale is not happy that Pigou knows this stuff. She's trying to play it cool, but it's pretty obvious. Bitch, I think that the Defiant and Dragon did come up with like the perfect psychological counter to Bitch. It's just like, we're going to do the thing that you can fight to a reasonable degree that you will never be able to beat, that you will just stand here and fight until you pass out. A perfect read. There's a moment that because I didn't have a write-up for the chapter. Let's find it. Leaving. Yeah, where I could see Bitch tense. Her henchwoman, the vet, stood and nervously circled around the edge of the room to join us, giving Bitch a bit of space. You're leaving me behind? And then Skitter convinces her that no, they're counting on her. And yeah, she only has a momentary thing, but she is in the final stages. I think this might be the last time I can think of that she questions if Taylor's leaving her behind or like something similar to that. So I think this is the final time. Either way, a little bit of final character improvement on the friendship front, because we know that it's like an OTP but for friendshipping. Taylor and Rachel. So for the hench people, I don't know, they just get some good minor characterization. This is like one of the only times, if the only time, we ever get to see Barker and Biter fighting. And the vet people helping the dogs mid-fight I like that. That's interesting. So we get a little characterization, whatever. Moving on to the powers, knowledge, and world building. We get to see a new suit that's actually an old suit that we already knew. And we get to see it in full action, actually doing all the things, instead of just getting Shrek'd by Leviathan too fast to do its thing. So, interesting stuff. We don't get that much world building, but we still just see the state of different portions of the city. And, like, just, more texture, as we always get. But I don't really have all that much to say in that regard. I'm gonna just move on to the audience participation. 16.4. Come up with your own method of parahumans conveyance. And let's see what our contestants had to say. Vale says, the last time Clockblocker was allowed to talk to a pre-sign-up ward candidate was the hero known as Slinky Pants. Eric secretly felt his brief suspension, 2 classes on heroic PR, and lifelong ban from speaking to new recruits was worth it. Eric. Is Clockblocker? Clockblocker's Dennis. You're trying to trick me. Oh, Vale. Dennis secretly felt his brief suspension, 2 classes on heroic PR, and lifelong ban from speaking to new recruits was worth it. You know the best part of that? You don't have to talk to any new recruits anymore. Let's see here. Then we've got... Dale just said, spoilers! Yes, me saying that Clockblocker's name is Dennis is major spoilers. Even though we already know that. Greg says, in Pact, there are demons who can be wherever they appear to be, and it's a sick power move. Reflected in a surface, you're there, instantly. You can treat photographs like waypoints and teleport to them. With a little preparation, you can hop around the world at the drop of a hat. Yeah, that's a good means of conveyance. Yeah. Vale says, did I get the spirit of the question without saying anything about the power? I've got to imagine Slinky Pants is able to spring around like he's that little alien thing from the Jetsons with the springy arms and legs. So yeah, I mean, kind of. I think the spirit of the question to me was to know the specific wonky thing you would do. Like, basically, sell me a power that's not a mover power that's being used as a mover power. Like Shatterbird, Glass Door. Oh, that's funny. Greg said mover power, but I accidentally said it as power move. I do think it's a sick power move, dog. Oh, Vale says he's a pants tinker. Okay. I mean, you can be an anything tinker. Sometimes tinkers are only good at making really big boxes. So let's see here. I think that's kind of it. I want to come up with a one of my own. So let me think. Well, there's something that I like that a character does in Ward that I can just say. It's a power that like summons a bunch of stuff really fast, and so the character just like does that to propel himself in a direction and just sort of uses the recoil of rocketing a bunch of shitty summons. It's so funny. I love that guy. Oh, he rules. I mean, we hardly see him, but just like comedy gold. Greg says boxes, camera, box cameras. That's quite the variety. Vale says that the Slinky Pants' Tinker Pants are amazing, and I've got to believe it. He's one of the highest rated Tinkers in the world. Slinky Pants is unstoppable. Um. I guess there's other stuff like if I were someone with Hookwolf's power instead of being a dummy, I would roll around like a sea urchin. Because it's faster and cooler. And plus, the rolling around like a sea urchin makes it like the Nilbog monster that 2 + 4 × 5 had for last week. So, it all comes full circle. That's what that means. I should have written down a couple answers because I actually think that this question has a lot of variety that you could come up with pretty easily. Anyway, I will be more proactive in the future. The question for 16.5 for next week is, what are your thoughts on the downside Taylor brings up that destroying the resource-intensive dragon suits that were meant to fight the 9, like, they can't be used against the 9. I am fumbling this question, but you know what I mean. What are your thoughts on them blowing up a really expensive piece of tech that was specifically meant to hunt a terrible serial killer? And posts. If I need to edit the question slightly later, I will do that. Well, unless anybody has any final thoughts, I'm gonna start up the music, and I am gonna read the links. Boop 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 boop. Vale says TC all, which I have to imagine means Thanksgiving chronicler. All. Greg says later. Alright, so, the music used in this week's episode, as has been true for arcs 15 and 16, is Monarch by ScarlettXOX. And you can find Scarlett on her Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. The Discord channel the Discord server for this channel can be found both in the channel description and stream description every week. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow, and the full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Thank you guys for being here in the chat, and I will see you again next week.